morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to take a look at the new way to play Mewtwo and Mew in the Pokemon trading card game. I showed you the new way to play Dark Box the other day. That went down rather well, to be honest with you. People seem to be quite into that video. Japan are just a little bit ahead of us, and they're showing us some of the things we can do to make these decks just a little bit better. So obviously it's all based around Mewtwo and Mew. Mewtwo and Mew has that phenomenal ability which says that you can use the attacks of any Pokemon EX or GX on your field or in your discard pile. And then of course the question becomes, which Pokemon are we copying with this? Now, obviously there are a couple of Pokemon we've been using for a little while. Reshiram and Charizard is a given. We're using Welder to accelerate energy. And if you're using Welder to accelerate energy, it is an absolute given that you'll also play Reshiram and Charizard. One of the things that Reshiram and Charizard does so gosh darned well is cover your weakness. Mewtwo and Mew is weak to Psychic. This is not. Now I know we're playing Jirachi to get rid of Psychic weakness, but firstly your opponent can get rid of it, secondly it can be prized, thirdly Power Plant can be played, etc. This is a really nice way of covering your weakness. 230 for 4 energy and a GX attack that can go through any effects on the defending Pokemon. That'll do very nicely. But we also here see Charizard and Braixen, and this has to be one of the first additions to the deck when Cosmic Eclipse comes out. It's got an attack for 4 energy that does 180 damage and lets you search your deck for any free cards and put them into your hand. It is a great card that should go straight into all of these fire decks, including Mewtwo and Mew. Now, by this stage, the majority of people have already figured out that the family Charizard, the one from Hidden Fates, is awesome. Frankly, 4 energy, 300 damage, that's the play here. That's what you do. If you go first in the mirror match, this is absolutely huge, because you can, using Welder, attach free energy during your turn. So if you go second, the best you can really do is Charizard and Reshiram's GX attack that does 200 damage. Whereas if you go first, attach an energy, and then next turn energy and Welder, or energy Welder turn 1, it doesn't really matter, and you do 300, you get the first Tag Team GX KO, and you're basically ahead for the game there, especially if you can knock their energy out at the same time. So everyone knows to play this Charizard GX. But how about the other 2 Charizard GXs? You see, in this list we actually see a Charizard GX, one of the ones from Burning Shadows. 5 energy, 300 discard free energy. Now alright, that is a huge amount of energy. But we are using Welder here, so it's not like this is unpayable. It's really not that bad. And then of course when you do pay it, you're doing 300 damage. And the great thing here is, although you're discarding free energy, don't forget that Welder plus attachment for the turn is free energy, so you can potentially do this 2 turns in a row. Now, you shouldn't really have to. The goal here is extremely simple. Turn 1, you get an energy on. Turn 2, Welder and an energy to copy Charizard GX from Hidden Fates to do 300 with a GX attack. Turn 3, you attach a 5th energy, use Crimson Storm for 300, and that's the game. Now that only obviously works against a Tag Team GX deck, but if you go first against a Tag Team GX deck, you get a Tag Team GX KO turn 2, and unless you get KO'd immediately, you do it again turn 3 and win. Done. That's phenomenal. But we also see here the Charizard GX from Detective Pikachu. Now, this one, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not such a gigantic fan of. There's no 0.5 energy 200. We can do better. There's no 0.5 energy 250 as a GX attack when we can do 4 energy 300. Now it does discard an energy from each of your opponent's Pokemon, which could be big, but really it's here for the first attack, 1 energy, discard the top 8 cards of your deck. If any are fire energy, attach them to this Pokemon. Bearing in mind you want to discard Pokemon to get in your discard pile to copy with Mewtwo and Mew, and if you discard energy they get attached to you. This is actually a phenomenal attack in this deck. Whew, there's all the fire Pokemon. Now we do play Espeon and Deoxys like we have been doing for a little while, mostly here for the GX attack that can drop 10 damage counters, or if you get 6 energy on there, 20 damage counters. Phenomenal against things like Pidgeotto, where you can not only take 3 prizes in one go, but you can also get rid of all of the draw from your opponent's side of the field. We have for a little while here been playing Solgaleo, 2 energy, 120 damage, and you get to accelerate 2 energy from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. That's pretty gosh darn good. We've seen that a little bit. And similarly, we're used to seeing Latios GX. It's got an attack which protects you from tag teams next turn. And frankly, tag teams are seeing a lot of play right now, so Latios is seeing quite a bit of play to counter them. But the other new ones we've got here are firstly Megalopony and Jigglypuff. Now this attacks for 3 energy, and it does 60 damage, plus 60 for each of your opponent's Pokemon EX and GX in play. And there are a bunch of decks out there that play a whole bunch of EX and GX Pokemon. And if you're against one of those decks, this is the best attacker you've got. All of a sudden, you're talking 3 energy. I mean, potentially 420 damage. If your opponent's got 6 EX or GX Pokemon in play, you're doing 420 damage. Yowza. Only good against some decks, but against those decks, it's phenomenal, so you really need to be playing it. And the Greninja GX from Detective Pikachu. Now this is actually a really, really important card that frankly should be in Mewtwo and Mew decks right now. What we're really looking at here is Miss Slash, 2 energy, 130. This attack's damage isn't affected by weakness, resistance, or any other effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. I mean, against something like a Alolan Ninetales, you should at the moment be taking an auto loss, because all of your attackers are GXs. So just play one of these. And then you get a 1-hit KO for 2 energy, and they can't block you. It is a phenomenal tech. Now, we also played Dedenne here to get rolling. This deck does play Tapu Lele, but you can easily just play something like Dedenne. It's really not a huge loss here. And it plays 1 copy of Azalf from Forbidden Light. Now, this has got an attack for a single colourless energy. You can use this attack only if you go second and only on your first turn. Shuffle one of your opponent's bench Pokemon and all cards attached to it into their deck. Now, this is great, because if you go first, you just get ahead on energy attachments. But if you go second, you use this. You get rid of your opponent's Pokemon that's used a welder, for instance, and you've gotten rid of hopefully all or most of their energy from turn 1. It's a really good option going second. And finally, 8.5 minutes in, that's the Pokemon. Now, in terms of the trainer line, we don't need to go into huge details here. A lot of it is what we would usually expect. But the changes that we see here, Tag Call. Tag Call lets you search for 2 tag team cards and put them into your hand. Now, they can be tag team Pokemon or they can be tag team supporters. More on them in a minute, but it's really important in this deck. We also have Great Catcher going in here. Discard 2 cards from your hand and then switch your opponent's active with one of their benched EX or GX Pokemon. Get rid of Custom Catcher, add this in, make some space in your deck. It's pretty gosh darned good. Now, the other thing we see here is Chaos Vortex. Chaos Vortex is a wonderful, wonderful new stadium card whereby you put it in play, and if your opponent tries to play a stadium, that stadium is discarded without applying any effects of the stadium. Really nice for preempting something like a power plant if you really want to keep your Jirachi out and working, and bearing in mind, right, with Mewtwo Mew's ability as well, this is a deck that is pretty terrified of power plant. You can play this down preemptively so your opponent cannot take advantage of it. And the other new supporters here really, or the trainers, but they are supporters, are tag team supporters. And what we're playing here are Guzma and Hala, and Mallow and Lana. Now, Guzma and Hala here is really, really fun. You search your deck for a stadium, put it into your hand, but if you discard 2 cards from your hand, you search for a Pokemon tool and a special energy as well. Now, my advice to you, if you're playing this deck, go Rainbow Energy. And then you can search it out really easily using Guzma and Hala, or maybe even Weak Guard Energy. You might as well, unless you need a particular kind of energy, of course. And then Mallow and Lana, switch your active with one of your bench. You may discard 2 cards from your hand, heal 120 from the Pokemon you sent to the bench. Really good for stopping your opponent trying to 2-hit KO you here. And remember that with Tag Call, you're going to be able to find these far more easily. Up till now, we've really been playing this deck with just Psychic Energy. But I really like the idea of playing some Rainbow, or just a little bit of Water even, and taking advantage of some of these cards. It's a little bit different to what it's been before. As a side note, do please remember that we do have Viridian Forest, so if you don't want to go for Rainbow Energy, just use Viridian Forest and play whatever basic energy you like. This is a little bit different from some of the existing ones we've seen. But I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, doesn't half look like a better build. I really do think adding in the Charizard GX from Burning Shadows and the Greninja from Detective Pikachu make the deck a fair bit better. Though this is the part where I do need to mention that this is a pre-rotation list, essentially. Japan are playing Sun and Moon on, so we don't have that Charizard at the moment, unfortunately. Every other major card in this list we still have, but we are missing that one Charizard, and that makes me a little bit sad. But at this stage, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to know what you think about all this, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And do please make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where we talk about a whole bunch of games that don't have any Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.